The sun streamed through the kitchen window as I stood at the stove, the sound of sizzling pancakes filling the air. The rich, buttery aroma was a familiar comfort, reminding me of all the Saturday mornings Lisa and I had spent together, laughing and planning our day. I flipped a pancake with a practiced flick of my wrist, a small smile creeping across my face as I envisioned Lisa returning home from her weekly shopping trip, bags in hand, ready to share in our ritual. "Hey, David. I'm back," Lisa called as she entered the kitchen, her cheerful voice cutting through the morning stillness. I turned to face her, taking in the sight of her, still radiant, even after a long morning out. "Perfect timing. Pancakes are almost ready," I replied, my heart swelling with warmth. "Did you get those shoes you were eyeing?" She dropped her bags on the counter and crossed the room to give me a quick kiss. "You know it. And I found that sweater you liked on sale." We shared a moment of contentment, a little slice of normalcy in our busy lives. Little did I know that our perfect routine was about to be shattered. Just a few weeks later, everything changed. I had been feeling off for a while, but I chalked it up to stress from work. The day I collapsed in the kitchen, however, I learned that stress was the least of my worries. I remember the chaos vividly, the sound of Lisa screaming my name, the frantic dialing of emergency services, the blur of hospital lights as I was wheeled away. The heart attack marked a turning point in our lives, one that I would never have expected. As I lay in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, I tried to process what had happened. Lisa sat beside me, her face a mask of worry, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "David, please don't leave me," she whispered, her voice shaky. "I can't do this without you." "I'm not going anywhere," I reassured her, even as doubts crept into my mind. "I'll get through this. We'll get through this." But the uncertainty loomed large. A month in the hospital had drained me physically and emotionally. When I finally returned home, the weight of the situation hit me. Our home felt different, more like a museum of our past rather than a sanctuary. I attempted to return to our routine, but the pancakes tasted different now, tinged with a sense of loss. Lisa stood in the doorway, watching me with a mixture of concern and confusion. "Do you want me to help?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "No, I've got it," I replied, trying to sound upbeat, but the truth was, I felt like a shadow of my former self. The energy I once had evaporated, leaving me with a sense of dread that loomed over our once happy mornings. Days turned into weeks, and I could see the change in Lisa. The laughter we shared had faded, replaced by an awkward silence that filled the space between us. One evening, as we sat across from each other at the dining table, the tension was palpable. "David, I just want things to go back to how they were," she said, frustration creeping into her tone. "I miss you. I miss us." "I miss us too, Lisa," I replied, my heart heavy. "But I don't know how to get back there. Everything feels different now. I'm scared, David." "I don't know what to do," she admitted, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. "We'll figure it out. We have to. I can't lose you." But as I looked into her eyes, I wondered if the bond we once had could ever be repaired. The heart attack had changed everything, and I was left grappling with a new reality, one that felt uncertain and terrifying. I realized then that the pancakes, once a symbol of our love, were now just a reminder of what we had lost. As the days rolled on, I felt the weight of my circumstances pressing down on me, transforming our home into a battleground of emotions. I longed for the laughter and intimacy we once shared, but it seemed to slip further from our grasp, leaving me haunted by the question, would we ever find our way back to each other? The first few weeks at home after my heart attack were a blur of medications, doctor appointments, and half-hearted attempts at recovery. Each morning, I would wake up to the sound of Lisa moving around the house, her footsteps soft but deliberate, as if she were tiptoeing around a fragile glass sculpture. I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, the weight of depression pressing down on me like a heavy blanket. I had hoped that returning home would bring a sense of normalcy, but instead, I found myself grappling with a void that seemed to swallow everything whole. The vibrant conversations we used to share over breakfast had turned into strained exchanges, punctuated by awkward silences. One afternoon, as I sat in the living room, I caught a glimpse of Lisa in the kitchen. She was chopping vegetables for dinner, her brow furrowed with concentration. I watched her, the love I still felt for her battling with the bitterness that had begun to take root in my heart. "Hey, do you need any help?" I called out, trying to bridge the growing distance between us. She glanced over her shoulder, her expression shifting from surprise to a tired smile. "No, I'm okay. Just trying to keep things normal," she replied, her voice lacking its usual warmth. Normal. The word felt like a cruel joke. I longed for our past, the days filled with laughter and intimacy, but instead, I was faced with the harsh reality of my limitations. As the days passed, I found myself sinking deeper into a pit of despair. The depression was relentless, clinging to me like a dark cloud. "David, I'm worried about you," Lisa said one evening as we sat on opposite ends of the couch, the television flickering in the background. "You haven't been yourself since you got home." "I'm fine," I snapped, surprising both of us with the edge in my voice. "I just need time to adjust." She shifted in her seat, her expression softening. "I know it's hard, but we can get through this together. I just feel so helpless." "Helpless? You don't understand," I replied, my frustration boiling over. "I can't even do the things I used to do. I'm not the same man anymore." Her eyes filled with tears, and I felt a pang of guilt wash over me. "I miss the way we used to be, David. The way you used to look at me," she whispered, her voice trembling. I looked away, unable to meet her gaze. The truth was, I missed that man too. The man who had the strength to make pancakes on Saturday mornings, the man who could hold her close and feel her heartbeat against his chest. But that man felt like a distant memory now, eclipsed by the realities of my physical and emotional struggles. As weeks turned into months, I faced an additional blow, erectile dysfunction. The first time it happened, I felt a rush of shame that washed over me like ice water. I had been trying to muster the courage to initiate intimacy, but when the moment arrived, my body failed me. Lisa noticed my hesitation, her concern palpable. "David, are you okay?" she asked gently, her voice laced with tenderness. "I'm just tired," I lied, hoping to deflect her worry. "David, it's okay if you're not ready. We can take our time," she said, her voice filled with understanding. But I could hear the unspoken frustration in her words, the way they lingered in the air like a storm cloud waiting to burst. "I don't want to take my time. I want things to be normal again." I shot back, my emotions spilling over. "Normal? What is that even supposed to mean for us now?" she countered, her patience wearing thin. "We can't just pretend everything is the same when it's clearly not." Her words stung, but they were also a wake-up call. I had been so consumed by my pain and frustration that I had lost sight of her feelings, of what we had once shared. I wanted to reach out and comfort her, to tell her that I loved her, but the words felt heavy on my tongue. "Lisa, I started, but the words stuck, tangled in a web of insecurity and fear. "David, I love you. But I can't keep living like this. I need you to be present," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I'm trying," I finally admitted, my heart aching with the truth of it. "But I don't know how to be the man you want me to be right now." The silence that followed felt deafening. I could see the hurt in her eyes, and I realized that the strain of my health issues was pushing us apart, threatening to unravel everything we had built together. I longed to bridge the gap between us, to reclaim the intimacy we once had, but I felt like I was drifting further away, lost in a storm of my own making. Every day became a battle, not just against my physical ailments but against the emotional wreckage threatening to consume our marriage. I wanted to believe that we could find our way back to each other, but with every passing moment, I felt the distance growing, like an insurmountable wall between us. I just hoped that somehow, we could begin to break it down before it was too late. As the weeks rolled on, the shadow of my heart attack seemed to loom larger over our lives, casting a pall over our once vibrant marriage. Each day felt like an uphill battle, and my mental state continued to spiral. I was trapped in a fog of depression, and the feeling of inadequacy nagged at me like a relentless itch. One evening, as I sat in the living room with my laptop, trying to distract myself with mindless scrolling, I noticed Lisa's phone buzzing incessantly on the coffee table. I glanced at it, curiosity getting the better of me. She had left it unlocked, an unusual habit. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me, as if simply looking at it was a betrayal. But the vibration persisted, drawing me in. I picked it up hesitantly. A message popped up from a contact named Mike. I didn't recognize the name, but my heart raced as I read the message. "Can't wait to see you later. Let's keep this between us." My mind went into overdrive. I tossed the phone back onto the table, pretending I hadn't seen anything. But the seed of suspicion had been planted, and it began to grow roots of paranoia in my heart. The questions raced through my mind. Who was Mike? What did he want with my wife? When Lisa returned from the bathroom, I acted casual, but my heart pounded in my chest. "Who's Mike?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just a friend from work," she replied, not meeting my gaze. "Why, just saw a message on your phone." "Seemed friendly," I said, trying to gauge her reaction. "David, it's nothing. We work on projects together." "You're being paranoid," she snapped, a hint of irritation creeping into her tone. "Am I? Or are you just not telling me everything?" I pressed, my insecurity bubbling to the surface. Her eyes flashed with annoyance, and I could see the tension in her shoulders. "You're overreacting. I can't believe you would jump to that conclusion. I thought we were past all this." Her words hit me like a slap. I felt the anger rise, tinged with hurt and confusion. "You keep saying that, but things aren't the same anymore, Lisa. I'm not the man I used to be, and maybe you're looking for that in someone else." "David, you're being ridiculous. I'm here with you, aren't I?" "You're the one pushing me away," she shot back, her voice rising. "Am I?" I challenged. "Or am I just seeing what's really happening? You've changed since the heart attack. You're distant, and now I find messages like that. It's hard not to think the worst." Lisa's face fell, her anger melting into something softer. "I'm trying to be there for you, but I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. You need to trust me." "Trust is hard when I feel like I'm losing you," I admitted, my voice breaking as the weight of my fears crashed down on me. She stepped closer, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I love you, David. But I can't keep doing this if you're going to doubt me every step of the way. You have to talk to me, not at me." The pain in her voice tugged at my heart, but the shadow of suspicion had already taken root. Over the next few days, I found myself on high alert, watching her every move. I became a detective in my own home, looking for signs of betrayal in the smallest things. I noticed how she would check her phone more frequently, laughing at texts that would make her smile, smiles I hadn't seen in weeks. I wondered if I was the only one who felt this way. The joy I used to feel when she entered a room was overshadowed by a creeping sense of dread. One evening, I confronted her again as we sat on opposite ends of the couch, tension crackling in the air. "You're still seeing him, aren't you?" "What?" "David, that's insane," she exclaimed, her voice tinged with disbelief. "I told you, Mike is just a coworker." "You're spiraling." "Spiraling?" I echoed, my frustration boiling over. "I'm just trying to understand what's happening. You're acting different, and I'm scared. I can't lose you." "Then stop accusing me of things I'm not doing," she shot back, her voice shaking with emotion. "I can't live like this. It's exhausting." The fight hung heavy in the air, both of us breathing heavily, words echoing in the silence that followed. I felt the gulf between us widen, my heart aching at the thought of losing her, yet unable to shake the gnawing suspicion that had taken root in my mind. That night, as I lay in bed, I stared at the ceiling, my heart racing. Doubt consumed me, twisting my thoughts into a dark narrative that felt all too real. What if I was right? What if Lisa was seeking solace in another man because I couldn't give her what she needed? The thought tormented me, pulling me deeper into a spiral of insecurity and despair. The intimacy we once shared felt like a distant memory, buried beneath layers of distrust and fear. I knew I had to confront my suspicions, but every time I tried, I was met with resistance, like running headfirst into a brick wall. The shadow of infidelity loomed large in my mind, threatening to consume everything we had built together. And deep down, I feared that if I didn't act soon, I might lose her for good. The sound of my suitcase wheels rolling across the pavement was both liberating and terrifying. I had moved to a new city, a fresh start away from the memories of a crumbling marriage and the suffocating weight of my past. I was filled with a mix of excitement and anxiety as I navigated the unfamiliar streets. The city buzzed with life, people rushing by, laughter spilling from cafes, and the distant sound of music drifting through the air. Settling into my new apartment, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope beginning to blossom within me. The walls were bare, but the empty space felt like a blank canvas, ready for me to paint a new life. I unpacked slowly, each box a reminder of the life I had left behind, pictures of happier times with Lisa, trinkets we had collected together, now just relics of a marriage that felt like a distant memory. One evening, while exploring my new neighborhood, I stumbled upon a quaint little coffee shop called The Roasted Bean. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air as I stepped inside, and I felt a flicker of warmth in my chest. I ordered a cappuccino and found a seat by the window, where I could watch the world go by. As I sipped my drink, I noticed a woman across the room, absorbed in her book. Her long, dark hair framed her face, and she wore a warm smile as she turned the pages. There was something about her that intrigued me, a spark of connection that I hadn't felt in a long time. "Hey, is that the latest by Margaret Atwood?" I asked, taking a chance as I approached her table. She looked up, surprise evident in her bright blue eyes. "Yeah, it is. I love her writing." "Have you read it?" I nodded, feeling a rush of excitement at the conversation. "I haven't read this one yet, but I'm a huge fan of The Handmaid's Tale. It's haunting, but so powerful." "I completely agree," she said, a smile lighting up her face. "I love how she weaves social commentary into her stories." "I'm Emily, by the way." "David," I replied, shaking her hand, the touch sending a spark through me. "It's nice to meet you." We chatted effortlessly, the initial awkwardness fading away as we shared our favorite authors and books. It felt good to connect with someone new, to laugh without the weight of my past hovering over me. Emily was vibrant and full of life, and I found myself drawn to her genuine enthusiasm. As the conversation flowed, I felt a shift within me. My heart, which had been so heavy with grief and suspicion, began to lighten. "So, what brings you to this lovely city?" Emily asked, leaning forward, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. I hesitated, the memories of my previous life threatening to surface, but I pushed them aside. I needed a fresh start. I just got out of a difficult marriage, and I thought a change of scenery would help me heal. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said softly, her expression empathetic. "It sounds like a brave step to take. Sometimes we have to leave the past behind to find ourselves again." "Exactly," I replied, grateful for her understanding. "I'm just trying to figure out what comes next. It's been a challenge, but I'm hopeful." As the evening wore on, I felt the barriers around my heart slowly start to crumble. By the time I finished my coffee, I knew I wanted to see Emily again. "Would you like to grab dinner with me sometime?" I asked, my voice steady despite the fluttering in my chest. "Sure, I'd love that," she replied, her smile wide and inviting. "How about tomorrow?" "Tomorrow it is," I said, feeling a rush of excitement course through me. The next day came quickly, and as I got ready, I felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness. It had been a long time since I had gone on a date, and I wasn't sure what to expect. We met at a charming Italian restaurant, and the chemistry was undeniable. "Wow, this place is amazing, Emily said, her eyes wide as she looked around. The ambience is so cozy. Yeah, I thought it would be a nice place to get to know each other better, I replied, feeling a warmth spread through me at the thought of spending time with her. As we shared a plate of pasta, I found myself laughing more freely than I had in months. Emily had a contagious sense of humor, and I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced since before my heart attack. Tell me more about your life here, she said, leaning forward, her interest genuine. What do you do? I'm in marketing, but I'm hoping to pivot into something more creative, I shared, feeling a spark of enthusiasm. I've always had a passion for storytelling, really? That's fantastic. You should definitely pursue that, she encouraged, her eyes bright with excitement. We continued to talk about our dreams and aspirations, the conversation flowing effortlessly between us. As the night wore on, I could feel the weight of my past slowly lifting. I was beginning to rediscover parts of myself that I had lost along the way, my laughter, my dreams, and my capacity for connection. Later, as we strolled through the city streets, I found myself drawn to Emily's warmth and energy. The way she spoke, her laughter echoing in the night air, reminded me that joy still existed, even after heartache. Thank you for tonight, Emily, I said, stopping in front of her apartment building. I had a great time. Me too, David. I'm really glad we met, she replied, a soft smile gracing her lips. As we stood there, an electric current of possibility flowed between us. I felt a longing that had been dormant for far too long, an ache for connection that seemed to bloom anew in her presence. Would you like to do this again? I asked, my heart racing. I'd love that, she said, her smile widening. With that, I walked away, a lightness in my step that I hadn't felt in years. The path ahead seemed brighter, filled with potential and new beginnings. I was ready to embrace this fresh chapter, to allow myself to heal, to love, and to live again. For the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful.